Good evening. Welcome back. I believe this is number 5. And we're going to do something a little different tonight. We're going to do a part 1 and a part 2. We got to talking about streamer fishing, and we just realized that there was kind of 2 different levels that we really wanted to talk about. So tonight we're going to go with part 1, which is going to be our smaller streamers, or use the gear you're already using for other trout fishing. And then in a few days we'll film again, and we'll pick up with part 2, talking about the more aggressive, larger flies, the kill it, eat.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try to keep this to right about an hour. Before we get started, I'm Tommy Lawhorn, co-owner here at South River Fly Shop. We had a few new arrivals this week, so put a couple things out on the table here. Our Galvin special edition for the year is the teal blue, and we've got a few models in stock. We have our Torque and our Grip, which are both great reels for bigger fish, saltwater. You've got a standard drag and a seal drag, and this is a limited edition color for the year. They do that about every year. Gorgeous reels, made in California. Family-owned business that we've been doing business with for a long time, so You're getting a great value for your money. And our brook trout patch hats are back in, and so we're coming up on our 15-year anniversary. And when we opened the shop 15 years ago, our good friend Jeff Flint, who owns Village Garden Center in Fishersville, had hats made for us. It was our housewarming, so to speak, shop warming gift to the shop. He had a bunch of hats made for us, and on the back, you may not be able to see this on the camera, but he had embroidered, "It's a trout stamp, not a food stamp." We got a lot of kicks out of that. We had a lot of folks asking about, will we ever do that again? So we thought this was the perfect time to bring the trout stamp, not a food stamp hat back for our coming up on our 15-year anniversary.
Yeah.
So we'll get going. I've got Dylan with me tonight.
Yeah. I've been here every night, I think.
Yeah. And so getting started talking about that.
So basic introductory streamer fishing.
Yeah, and this is you're on the stream, you're fishing a hatch, it's over. What can we do? It's another piece to add into your normal everyday arsenal. So what we're going to talk about is the everyday feeding behavior of trout. Once a trout reaches about 12 inches long, their predatory nature really kicks in, and that doesn't matter if it's a brown or a rainbow or a brook trout. And brook trout, it happens sooner. Sometimes 8 and 9 inch brook trout are pretty predatory. They're going to start eating more small minnows, dace, darters, sculpins that are present in all of these streams. They're going to start eating crayfish. They're going to start eating leeches. They're bigger calories. They're abundant in some degree food sources they're there every day, whether there's a hatch or not. Sometimes during a hatch, these minnows and dace and darters, they're feeding on those bugs too. So they're going to become more active, and they're going to get in these trout's predator lanes more. So you're going to see these trout eating these, and we're talking, say, sub 1 inch to 3 inch, maybe even 4 inch size baits. Your trout are eating these all the time. It's not a, I got to kill it, it's injured, whatever. That's a normal part of the meal.
They're still opportunistic.
Still opportunistic, but this is something that's present, and they're constantly, it's there for them all the time.
Yeah.
That being said, these are not flies that you need any specialty gear to tie or to fish. We're on the stream with our all-purpose trout rod, our 9'5" weight, or 8.5 4 weight, or a 10 3 weight if we're if we're streamer fishing, or if we're Euro fishing. these are flies that we can definitely work with. These are imitations that we can definitely work with in that situation. So our gear for this is the gear you already have in your hand. It's your normal rod. We may want to shorten up a little bit, on the leader.
Yeah.
Go in that 6 to 9 foot range.
I like to run a little shorter.
Yeah, you can run a little shorter than that. You can use a tapered leader and just cut it back.
Yeah, I tell people this a lot. If you get through your standard 9-foot 4X leader, and you've cut it down so far that you're just into something that's too thick to really tie on to nymphs or dries, just save that, wrap it back up, put it back in the pack, and keep those cut down leaders for when you want to do some streamer fishing.
Yeah, and most of these are going to be weighted to some degree. Some are not, but most of these are going to be weighted flies to some degree. So a standard nylon leader that you would use for fishing a nymph rig with an indicator, or fishing a dry fly, just shortened up a little bit. That's one way to do it. Typically, one of the greatest inventions that's come along in the way of fishing these flies since I got into fly fishing over 40 years ago is the weighted poly leader.
Yeah.
And poly leaders come in floating all the way through like a Sink 6. And they're tapered just like your nylon leader, but they're coated in a coating that has probably tungsten powder or something like it in the coating to give them different sink rates. And that, if you carry a couple of those, and they're not expensive, they're $20 tops.
Yeah.
And they last years.
Like the Versaleader.
Yeah. Versaleader from Rio is probably the best example.
I feel like that one's only like $13 or $14.
Yeah, they're in the sub $20 category.
It's a good thing to just have in the pack.
Yeah. And those are not a full leader. Keep that in mind. They are the butt and taper section of a leader. You're going to add your tippet. Most of the time, the trout sizes on those leaders are going to be 7 foot. So you're adding a 7-foot sink tip to the tip of your standard floating line. You swap leaders, you put on a bugger, whatever, and you're now fishing a small, everyday streamer. You're going to add a couple feet to 3 feet, 2 to 3 feet of probably 2X tippet. I wouldn't go much lighter than that on general principles, just in case you're going to get into a bigger fish. But those weighted poly leaders are a really good thing that's come along that we didn't have 30, 40 years ago. We had to put split shot on the leader, and that made casting no fun at all. You can't tell this is on your rod most of the time. I mean, you'll feel a little difference in the weight of the cast, but it feels like you're casting a normal fly line and leader.
It feels like it has some more power to it.
Just loads the rod a little quicker.
Yeah.
But it's a great way, and there's multiple sink rates on these, so you can carry a intermediate, a clear that's only 1.5 inches per second, and maybe a 4 or a 6 inch per second. And it's basically 4 versions. There's floating, there's intermediate, there's 4, and there's 6. So you don't have, even if you invested in all of them, you're $75, $80. And you've got a way to get those flies to different levels in the water column without changing up your whole outfit, going back to the truck, getting a different rod.
Yeah.
And that's something that, it's time saving.
Yeah.
Keeps you on the water. Sometimes when you leave the water, you have every intention of coming back, but you get to the truck and you end up going to grab a bite, and
you realize you're done for the day.
You realize you're done for the day. So it's not, it's not just about, it's maximizing your time.
Yeah. And it's so easy to swap these out. I mean, there's nothing to it. It's just changing a leader. Yeah. So if that's going to keep you on the water, keep you fishing, streamer fishing is such an active thing. I mean, you're moving constantly. You're moving downstream. You're not spending a lot of time in one spot. And you've got to change your sink rates sometimes, and you've got to keep it working. This is kind of one of the best ways
It's a great way to explore new water.
It's a great way to explore new water. It's a great way to search for fish. Maybe you fish a streamer through a spot and you roll a bunch, but they just don't commit to it. You work back through it with a nymph or
Switch
something
that rig
like
back
that.
up, put an nymph rig on.
It's very versatile for sure. I use streamers a lot. One, of course, just for fun, but also in that searching manner.
Yeah, and this is like I say, you're not going for Godzilla. You're looking for everything that's in that trouty range of that. Maybe it's just a 10 to 12 inch fish. Maybe it's maybe there's a 16 or 18 inch fish in there that's going to take a swipe at it that wasn't as interested in a bug drifting by.
Oh. Yeah.
I often do this just for the activity.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit in one place and wait for a hatch, or I don't want to, work 2 or 3 runs with a nymph rig really intensely. I want to cover some ground. I want to see what's around the next bend. And we're all explorers to some extent there.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important, is to see what's out there. The one thing I would say is when you're setting up that all-purpose trout rod, make sure you set it up as an all-purpose trout rod on the line.
Yeah.
A longer belly weight forward they're out there. There's plenty of options on that. That's going to let you cast your dry flies more gently. Generally, that's going to have a softer taper on both ends. It's not going to be as aggressive. It's going to have enough weight and mass in the line to roll over a nymph rig. But a longer belly, say 30 plus foot on that weight forward head. You want that 40 foot range really, if you can get it, because you are going to do more roll casting. Even fishing downstream where you can use, if you're right-handed, you're on the left side of the stream, you can use the stream channel for a cast some. But you're often going to have cover behind you, and you are going to roll cast more. You're going to want to get that fly further away from you more often. And that longer belly weight forward line does that really well. Now there's some old school guys that are very much in favor of a double taper line here.
Yeah.
And I can't argue with them. That double taper line, that you got that same softer, gentler taper on the front. You've got great, your whole belly, the whole length of the line is the same diameter, carrying the same mass. It is a great option. There's less of those available.
Yeah.
But there are some good ones like the Cortland 444 Peach.
Yeah.
That's not a super expensive line. I think it's sub $80.
I feel like
70,
it's like 60,
65 or 70.
Yeah.
That's a great option. And it will work for your nymph rigs. It will work for your dry flies, but it gives you more of that all-arounder to where if you need to turn around and swing soft tackles or work a small streamer on your 5-weight or your 4-weight, it's way more versatile.
It is more of a true to weight line, though.
They're
right?
generally more true to weight. So if you're doing big nymph rigs, if that's your thing, is a big indicator, a big nymph rig, it's probably not going to do that super well.
Yeah.
There's ways around that though. There's water loading and things like that you can still make that work. But like I said, we're not talking about throwing a dumbbell-eyed 4-inch long fly. We're talking about something that's a lot easier to work. Like I said, long belly weight forward, that 30 plus foot head or a double taper. Our poly leader or our regular nylon leader, shortened up a little bit. Reels, it's your trout reel. Basic drag, clicker, whatever you're comfortable with. We're not likely to have a fish take off and get us into backing. Even a big fish is not likely to get us into backing on our streams. So we're basically still with our normal trout gear, rod and reel. Slight variances maybe in your line and leaders, but it's very much what you're already on the river with.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really come down here with a specialized streamer rod. I just come down with the 9'5" weight and go for it.
Yeah. And that's what most of us are doing. We can do anything we need to that day.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of, say, a 9'5" weight. It can handle most anything you throw at it, short of those giant streamers.
Yeah.
It's probably not the best choice in Wyoming or Montana, where you're fighting wind every day. You might want it to be a 9'6" weight there, just to give you a little more line mass in the wind. But here in the east, up and down the eastern seaboard, I would say, that's going to be the gear you want. I've got a little outline here tonight to try to keep myself a little better on track, but I'm going to skip to, since we just talked about gear, let's talk about flies.
Okay.
These are going to be common flies you probably already have in your box.
I can't tell you how many different buggers I throw.
Yeah.
Buggers,
zonkers, muddlers, a Murtich minnow, a clouser, a clawdad. That's a little on the heavy side, but not a problem for your 5 weight if you keep it to the right sizes. You're imitating those dace, those darters, those sculpins, those crayfish, those leeches that are in all of our trout streams. And one of the cool flies, some of the cool flies to me, are the classic, we're talking, possibly even 1800s on some of these patterns, definitely 1900s. Your classic bucktail trout streamers. The ones that were in the mouth of that big brown trout leaping out of the water on the old field and stream cover.
Yeah.
When, back in the 60s and 70s and 80s.
Yep.
A Mickey Finn, a black-nosed dace, a baby rainbow, a baby brook trout. They're very simple, long shank streamer hook, some body wrap or tinsel, and a bucktail wing. Maybe a couple colors in that bucktail wing. And a thread head. Some guys got real crazy and would paint a little white dot on each side of the thread head and put a pupil on it. Probably with their wife's nail polish.
Mm-hmm.
But you're basically looking at that, small fry minnows that are inch and a quarter long, like your dace, and they'll get up to about 2 inches. You're looking at all your darters are going to be sub 3 inch. They're maturing before they get to that size. Your sculpins, another old school pattern is the woolhead sculpin. Shanks white minnow. Those are all great flies for this kind of thing, and they're flies you've probably have something like it. Everybody's got woolly boogers in their box. Different colors of woolly boogers, olives, tans, whites, black even.
Yeah.
Olive.
Always olive.
And we've talked about how much we love an olive woolly booger, but I think that's, really the woolly booger is just such a versatile pattern that.
Yeah.
And how you fish it is more important than what you fish. To me, that's the next kind of thing that we're going to talk about. And most of the time with streamer fishing, we are going to be more across and down. We're going to be talking about fishing the river from top to bottom as opposed to bottom to top, which is more likely with a dry fly or a nymph rig.
Yeah.
And as Dylan said, if you get bored with the dry fly or the nymph rig, or if you're not having as much luck as you think you should and you're not sure that you're on the fish, work back through that water with a streamer and see what you move. Even if you don't catch those fish, you're going to identify where they're holding that day. You're going to see most of this. This is not did I feel a strike? This is going to be visual.
Take that information and record it for the next time.
Yeah, even if you don't put the nymph rig back on, that under these conditions, fish were holding back there on that ledge, not up here in the gut.
Yeah.
So you've got that, you're building that information that about that stream or about that type of conditions. Maybe it applies to other streams. it generally does.
It really translates pretty well, especially if you find similar structure, similar days, similar structure, similar runs. I mean, you can really take this and move it to any other river if you find that similar structure, of course.
Yeah, no, it's a great way. So we've been talking about the flies and the rods and the reels, but we are going to turn around and we're going to fish that water back downstream now, and so our approaches are going to be a little different. I do recommend staying as close to shallow water or the bank as you can, so that you can work that fly further away from you.
Yeah.
Um,
Before we get into it, talking about these approaches, the general idea here is with streamers, you're working downstream. You're usually not walking upstream as you fish. This is it's really simple because when we're looking at people fishing dry flies, where you're fishing nymphs, you are working upstream.
yeah.
I do see a lot of streamer fishermen, they work upstream. They're not really using a pattern that's meant for that. This is just kind of what you're more or less meant to do when you're fishing streamers. We want to be working downstream.
And like I said, I want to be as close to the bank or as
Yeah.
close to shallow water as much as possible. I don't want to get my knees wet.
Yep.
Sometimes you do. Sometimes that run that you're working down through is a little deeper against the bank there, here and there. I would say that the way we're fishing, we're already going to have covered that. But keep in mind that sometimes fish do hold really close to the bank.
Yeah.
And that could be the bank you're on. So if you know that as you're working downstream, you're going to be wading through a knee deep or thigh deep spot at some point against that bank, get the fly down in there before you get there. Get that fly, that streamer pattern or whatever, down into that bucket or whatever it happens to be before you get to it. But overall, there's going to be some different ways of putting that fly out there that we'll talk about. The first one is probably the most common, and that is you're going to make that cast across or slightly down, and you're just going to retrieve that fly at a steady pace, just like a minnow swimming or a crayfish that's lifted up off the bottom swimming. You're going to be making that fly swim through the water at a normal pace, nothing super fast, nothing super slow. Just a steady strip, short strips, 6 to 8 inches of line. Probably going to be a 30-foot cast. You're wanting to cover some water there. And at the end of that cast, you're going to take a step or two downstream. You're going to do it again. I would say overall, that's probably I would call it a searching method.
Yeah.
You're not sure where the fish are. So you're working your way through some water and you're searching, looking for that holding water that they're using. You're looking for reactions. You're not even necessarily looking for eats. You're looking for that flash behind the fly, seeing a fish move behind the fly, and that gives you a better idea of where your targets are going to be. The second method I would say would be more of, it's kind of in between. You've got your steady retrieve and you got your no retrieve. Then you've got what I call a bump strip or a swing and bump strip. So you're casting that fly slightly down onto the other side. Maybe throw a mend on it to let it sink a little, upstream mend. And then as that fly starts to come into motion on the swing, you're going to just bump. So it's not a strip, it's actually just bumping back as it comes across the current. You're giving it a little jigging action, especially with a weighted fly like a beadhead woolly booger or something like that, where that nose is going to dive every time it slightly pauses. That's going to give the fly a lot more animation.
Yeah.
That's going to be kind of that midway approach. And then there's the pure swing, where we're going to cast that fly over the other side. We're going to throw an upstream mend on it. We're going to let the current pull it down, bring it across, maybe swing it in against that bank below us. We're going to take a couple steps down. We're going to do it again. I find that works better in a little bit colder water.
Yeah.
It's a much slower presentation across, just that minnow moving from this side of the current to that side of the current. They do that. They do it all day. So we're just imitating that, slower, more holding as it's moving across in the current. Those are the three basic ways that you're going to present that fly.
Yeah.
You're going to cover different types of water with each one. That steady retrieve is great for shallow water. It's great for, you're fishing a weighted fly or that sinking leader, and you're keeping the fly moving. You're not letting it grab a ledge or hang between two rocks. You can work it over cover by speeding up a little bit, a submerged log or something like that. That swing and bump works really well when you've got shallow dropping off to deep, coming back to shallow. You can bump it more when it's in the shallow and bump it less as it goes through the deeper pocket. And the pure swing, if you want to really get it down, you can throw more mins, reach up and drop it. There's just a lot of things that you can do with your basic gear to really make these retrieves, so to speak, work. These are all probably going to be roll cast. Some of them will be aerialized back cast.
Yeah, if you have the space, I guess.
Yeah.
Not really here.
Yeah, a lot of times you are on streams with tree cover behind you, especially if you're wading close to the bank.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of roll cast involved. I like roll casting. It's kind of no brainer. Just pick up, roll it back over, swing it through, strip it, whatever. Take a couple steps down, do it again. My main thing there is keep moving.
Yeah, you have to cover water here.
You are still looking for a slightly more aggressive fish.
Yeah.
I rarely make two passes with the same cast.
I might do 3 because I'm hopeful.
Yeah. Really juicy spot, I might make a couple, but I'm rarely going to make more than one cast. It's one and done. I'm taking a couple steps. This is a great method in shallow riffles.
Yeah.
Water that's hard to fish with a nymph rig, especially an indicator rig, because you're trying to get your depth set right, and you never do. So one drift you're not on the bottom or not in the zone, and the next drift you move your indicator a few inches and you're hanging a rock every
3 inches.
Yeah, or you're hung on a rock. This is great for that foot deep moving water, 1.5 foot deep moving water. If there's a fish in there, you're not going to see him.
No.
None of our eyes are that good. I mean, very, very rarely in moving water that shallow, it's generally moving fast enough, you're not going to see fish holding in that water.
You're not going to pick that up.
But they're there. That's the bug factory. That's the food factory. They're there, and especially in prime conditions. So those three methods, and then as we move downstream, as we cover water, we're learning the river. If we don't already know it, we're going to see looking downstream that, hey, there's an edge of a ledge down there. It's shallow on this side and deeper on that side. Well, man, I really want to work that parallel line. Or there's a drop off over that rock. I'm going to feed into it. I'm going to give it a little slack and let it drop down in there a little bit more because it's probably a little deeper pocket there. So it's what cover is available within the range of that cast. Whether you're stripping it, swinging it, bump stripping it, use that available cover to dictate how you're moving the fly. Just letting it stall and hang there can work.
That's a really interesting one where it's good to have different streamer patterns in your box, but what might be more important is having the different retrieves.
Yeah.
That might change your day up a lot. If you only go about your day doing one retrieve and you wonder why you're not catching fish on streamers, it could be that you just need to try something else.
Yeah, and I would say you should vary your retrieves by the water that you cast to,
Yeah.
more so than anything else. That's the first factor. And we're looking for, you know, we're looking for fish that are willing to move to some degree. So we want to hit those spots that they're likely to be sitting in so that they see it.
Yep.
If all we do is a steady retrieve and we're fishing riffled water, well, they're not going to get much of a chance to see it. If it doesn't go right past their nose, they probably aren't going to see it.
Right.
If we're doing a bump strip through that water, you're keeping that fly doing this coming across there a lot more profile, a lot more visibility to the fish from further away.
Yeah.
Pure swing, when that fly engages, when that line engages in the current, that fly is going to turn like this. As it's coming across, it's not going to do this coming all the way across. It's probably going to profile most of the way across that riffle and then straighten up as it dangles. That profile is a lot more visible than a little tiny tail doing this straight ahead of you.
Yeah.
So it's fly pattern, but it's also, how you bring it across past that, whatever cover it is. Some different covers that you're looking for: that underwater ledge, that little rocky drop off, and especially like the South River or the Jackson or the Bull Pasture. You got a lot of those.
Yep.
You got a lot of hard rock with a change in depth. And some of those are significant changes in depth. You may have to throw another min to get that fly to sink a little bit more because it's a big change in depth, and then reactivate it. Submerged boulders. In a deeper pool, that submerged boulder or that rocky outcropping on the bottom there's guaranteed a couple of pillows on that submerged boulder that are a real easy place to sit. Current's going around it. Even in a fairly still pool, there's current going around that obstruction underwater. And I like a submerged boulder better than I like one sticking out of the surface.
Yeah.
Because there's very likely an edge there for a bigger fish to sit on, fairly invisible, super well protected from predators, both overhead predators especially. If I see a submerged boulder, I'm going to fish it more than one cast. That's going to give me more than one cast. Logs underwater, same thing. You're especially one that's touching bottom here but not touching bottom here, or there's a gap between the log and the bottom. Man, there's no better overhead cover than that. And that will be oftentimes a bigger fish.
Your log jams and your underwater log. Yeah, without a doubt.
An undercut bank.
Yeah.
Undercut under a log jam. A debris pile on the surface of the water in front of a jam or something like that, where you've got that pure overhead cover, but you still got all your good water underneath of it down to the bottom. I mean, those are awesome targets.
It'll look a little scary, I guess.
You're planning on maybe losing that fly when you
Maybe.
swing it under there, but hey, you got to do it. And that's a big thing. You got to have enough flies in your box to lose some flies. We talked about the rule of three. Tie them or buy them. Got to have three. It doesn't matter. And Dylan was talking about having 6 to 12 of nymphs and stuff. I'm a firm believer in that rule of three. Whether it be nymphs, streamers, dries, whatever, I'm going to have 3. But when you're moving streamers through cover, you're going to hang them up. You're going to lose some.
Yeah.
If you aren't putting it where it needs to go. And then there's the overhead cover. Getting that cast back under that overhanging limb. That shady spot against the bank that's maybe the same depth as it is 6 feet out. But 6 feet out, it's in the sun. Up against the bank, it's in the shade.
They love some shade.
especially if it's warming through the day, man, they're going to get out of the sun when they can.
And it feels like cover. It feels like they don't have something looking down on their backs. That can be incredibly important for these fish.
Yeah. Now, and that fish is almost always a feeding fish.
Yeah.
But probably the last piece that I would say for cover is the subtle piece. And that's that gravelly bottom with a trough or a gravel bar coming partway across the river and there's a drop off downstream of it. It's a lot more subtle. Sometimes it's a lot harder to see.
That and your color changes.
Your color changes. Often the only way you will see it is you'll notice the bottom looks a different color 20 feet out than it does 10 feet out.
Yeah.
Those are prime lies.
Yeah.
Often that is the cover, is the color change.
Yep. And a lot of the time it is right where it changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, can't tell you the number of fish I've caught off of, a gravel bar that drops off from a foot deep to 2.5 foot deep. It's all cobble. There's no big rock. There's nothing specific that you're seeing there. Looks like flat bottom. But there's a distinct change in depth.
Yeah.
And usually the color is the only thing that gives that away. But we're looking for those. We want to make sure we're getting good cast on those. There's a lot of rivers that don't have big deep holes.
Yeah, they're low gradient. They kind of just flow the same all the way through. You're going to find the cover, but at this point you're looking for those ledges, those underwater boulders, those logs or log jams.
Yeah. And the undercut banks.
And the undercut banks, yes.
Yeah. Water temperatures, water levels. There's never a bad time to fish a bigger fly like a streamer.
Yeah.
Whether it's the coldest water, that 40 degree, even less, through your probably mid 60s.
Yeah.
Once you get to mid 60s, we're not fishing for trout anyway. We're trying to leave them alone once we get past that 65 mark. So there's really not a water temperature that's not going to produce some fish in fishing that little bit bigger minnow pattern, crayfish pattern. But different water temperatures are going to change how you present the fly. I'm going to present that fly much slower in 40 to 45 degree water, as slow as I possibly can. Pure swing, a very gentle bump strip. I'm going to try to get it deeper. I'm definitely going to the poly leader if it's colder.
Yeah.
In that, I would say even sub 50 degree water, I'm probably going to be running that poly leader to try to get that fly down a little deeper. But as we go up through the temperature scale, we are going to want to do some different retrieves. We go, say, 45 to 50 degrees, a little bit more on the bump strip. I still probably wouldn't be using a steady retrieve or a faster stripping retrieve.
I'm a big fan of that bump strip, that jerk strip. Because you don't have to work it so fast. You can do it pretty slow and match the pace that you feel you need.
Well, it's also you're keeping the fly. It takes it longer to make that traverse across that cover.
Yeah.
You're keeping it there for them to, it's not just a glance and gone. It's, oh, wait a minute. I think I'll eat that.
Especially on the pauses.
So it's a lot more, that's a great method. Like I said, the pure swing, you're really dropping it in there, coming across real slow. That's probably your best cold water presentation.
Yeah.
Sub 45 degrees. 45 to 50, definitely moving to the bump strip more. Maybe just still doing some pure swinging. Maybe bump up the fly size a little bit. Once we get to 50 degrees, I think that 50 to 60 degree range, it probably doesn't matter what retrieve you're using. What do you like?
Yeah.
What do the fish like that day? That's when you experiment with all three and say, well, this is definitely working better today. You're really in that, that sweet window where pretty much every trout, their metabolism's firing. They need food pretty much 24/7 at that temperature range. They're going to be eating.
For sure.
Um, Temperature, always going to be a factor. Water level.
It feels pretty important.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about, normally this is going to be a situation where conditions are pretty good. You're probably going to be fishing normal flows or maybe subnormal flows more with this method.
Yeah.
It's probably not the best method for high dirty water.
Yeah.
It will catch a few fish in high dirty water.
For sure.
But this is this is a normal day on the stream. I just don't want a nymph anymore. Or the hatch is over, and they're not coming up readily on dry flies anymore.
You just want to have fun.
I just want to have fun. I want to feel a good, strong tug.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even a 12-inch fish 20 feet downstream of you is going to be a good, strong tug.
Oh, yeah. They hit streamers with every single bit of might that they have.
Yeah.
They're trying to kill it.
They're stunning it at the very least to swallow it easier.
Yeah. And that's what I mean.
Yeah.
They're stunning it, trying to kill it.
I've actually had minnows swim out of a trout's gullet before.
Yeah.
When I put it in the net. They're fine. They're not dead. But they were halfway down a trout's gullet, and it coughed him up in the fight.
Well, I had them spit out crayfish, and the crayfish swim away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not always about the kill.
Yeah.
This is just, I'm eating you. You're littler than me, I'm eating you.
For sure.
Yeah, so we're talking about normal conditions and high water, this not being maybe the best method, but it can work. This method also works pretty well in low water. And we've experienced that a lot over the last couple of years with, a couple of years of drought, persistent drought. So don't be afraid of fishing that streamer in low water. You are going to want definitely your nylon leader there. You're going to be fishing a lot shallower stuff. Pools that are 4 or 5 foot deep in normal flow are going to be 2 to 3 foot deep in low flows.
Right.
Those foot deep riffles may not have as many fish in them because they're now going to be 6-inch deep riffles, but they still probably have a few fish in them. So fishing it in low water, I think low water is a great time for that steady strip. Get that fly in the water and just start moving it. Move it across the pool. You probably aren't going to have as much current to work with to swing the fly. You're not going to have that current moving fast enough to keep the fly up off the bottom on a swing, especially if it's a beadhead bugger or something like that.
Yeah, maybe unweighted.
A lot of times I am going to go to, a simple lead body woolly booger or a zonker with just a little bit of lead tape. Something that's a little more buoyant. A great fly, if you're imitating minnows, is a Murdich minnow. No weight really at all. Just some bucktail and some estaz for the head. That fly has a lot of darting motion, especially on that steady retrieve. The head's kind of round and bulky, and it'll dart a little bit on the retrieve because it doesn't pull exactly the same every time.
Right.
Larger headed flies that more suspending flies, definitely in that low water situation. But I've caught some really nice fish in, say the South River here, 30 CFS is a low flow. Yeah, it's a late summer. It's been that flow through the winter this year because of low water, but that's a very low flow, and I've caught some really nice fish, and I've caught good numbers of fish. Just steady stripping a streamer, cast it to cover, and bring it back. Steady, not fast.
Yeah.
I want that fish to eat it when he's far enough away he doesn't see me. And I am going to make longer casts there, or I'm going to use cover behind me more there to blend in. Don't wear a bright orange shirt.
Drab
colors. Things that blend in with trees and rocks and brush behind you.
Get some greens.
Some olives, some tans, some grays.
And when I say green, I do not mean chartreuse.
Yeah. Pay attention to what's behind you that can hide you. You don't have to hide behind something. Just being in front of something takes away your silhouette.
Yeah. Something to break you up.
You don't need to wear, mossy oak camo.
Nothing wrong with it.
You can.
Yeah.
It won't hurt a thing. But you are trying to make that fish follow the fly and eat it. So you don't want him to see you. So that is, especially in low water, that's a big factor. And that's often where people fail streamer fishing in low water, is they get the fish's attention. They got that fish following the fly. They're moving it too fast, and by the time the fish commits to it, the fish sees them.
Yeah.
And they're standing too open. They're too far out in the stream. They don't have cover behind them. They're a predator at that point. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, you've got this fish swimming or swinging all the way out at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're right on top of him, yeah, you're gonna notice it.
He's not going to eat.
Yeah, he's gonna notice you, and he's gonna
Turn tail and run.
He's gonna turn faster than you thought he could, and it's easy to mistake that as a swipe, I think.
Oh, it's absolutely easy to mistake that as a swipe. And throwing back to that fish is a waste of time.
Yep, move on.
Turning around and putting an nymph rig on for that fish is a waste of time, because you just truly spooked that fish.
Yeah.
That fish is going to go hide somewhere for a few minutes. Could be an hour. That's heart rate just went to 160. You're going to sit down. That low water streamer fishing is probably the toughest.
Yep. Low is usually clear.
Well, and it's the toughest for everything. It's the toughest for nymph fishing. It's even the toughest for dry fly fishing.
Still fun.
But it gets you active fish.
That, and I've been talking about this year since I don't know how long we've been in low water now.
3 years.
Yeah.
Other than a few bumps.
Low water, while it may be challenging to go out, is a fantastic time to go out and learn the river.
And fish a jig streamer. And this is more your department than mine.
Fish a jig streamer.
And you talk about, some of these aren't big flies.
No, jig streamers are going to fall under that 1 to 3 inch range. Honestly, a 3-inch jig streamer is
huge.
It's huge. We're really not throwing that. A jig streamer is just a great way to search, just like all of your streamer fishing, but it is going to let you fish these smaller runs that normally would be this giant, expansive thing that you could swing a streamer through, do all this other stuff that we're talking about, and now it's been reduced down to 20 feet. It is going to still let you pick out those streamer eating or streamer chasing fish in that spot. Because if you think about it, when it gets low and those spots reduce, there are still fish looking for streamers. And now they're more condensed. Yeah. They're not as spread out.
No. That's the great thing about low water. That's the one saving grace of low water.
Yeah.
It narrows the field.
It really narrows it. And a jig streamer is one of the most efficient ways to fish through those spots.
And when you're talking about jig streamers, you're talking about a size 8 or 10 hook with a tungsten bead, most likely.
Yep.
Probably the most common one people have seen is a jig leech or a jig bugger.
Yep.
They're 1.25 inches long.
Yeah. They're not big. I think the MFC one is honestly, I only think it's like a 10.
Yeah.
It might be a 12.
It's, an inch long fly.
Yeah.
And it's got a pretty heavy tungsten bead on it. So if you're out there with your 3-weight Euro rod and you just aren't in the nymph zone, you can turn around and fish that jig streamer downstream and you're touching bottom with it on pops.
Yeah. And even just to overcomplicate things here, not even just that 10-foot 3-weight, but going lighter in your Euro rods so that you can present these streamers on lighter tippet, where that could really make your day. If you're fishing 3X, 2X, or heavier, I mean even 4X really, through some of these spots on these low clear days, they're going to turn off. Those fish do not like that.
It's not moving right.
Yeah, it's not moving right.
Even if they don't see it, even if it's fluorocarbon and they're
Yeah.
not likely to see it, it's changing. Thicker, stiffer tippet is changing how that fly moves.
Yeah. And I mean, I was fishing jig streamers here this last Wednesday on 7X. That's just what I had to do that day, and it worked great. I'm not saying that's what you should do on every rod, and I'm gonna get
It's
out.
certainly going to be a 2-weight or no more than a 3-weight
Yeah.
Euro stick that
And
you're doing that on.
I don't even like that on a 3-weight. 3-weights just to have a stiffer tip section. They don't feel like they can cushion it.
No, but it is very effective.
Super effective.
And typically the fly there is going to be pretty small.
Yeah.
That's really you can fish 5X, 4X. It's not a big enough hook that you're going to break off on a hook set because the tippet's too thin for the diameter of the hook wire. And one of our questions tonight, we're going to talk a lot about tippet here in a minute with one of our questions, so I won't go any further there. That brings us kind of to, our question time.
Yeah.
I got a couple of pretty good ones. I think you did too. The best one I got was our good friend Jonathan here at the fire department. Was specifically asking, what are we talking about tippet wise? The generality there is heavy. You're going to be using size 8, size 4, hooks. For the most part, these streamers we're talking about are tied on 4, 6, 8, maybe 10 on a streamer hook.
Yeah.
It's a little bigger fly. It's a little bigger wire gauge that makes that hook. And so thinner tippets tied to a thicker wire gauge, it's a fragile knot. It's just not a good knot. 2X, 3X, maybe even 0X if you've got more normal water conditions, less visibility for the fish to see the leader, and loop knots.
Yeah.
Like Dylan said, if you're fishing that lighter rod, if you're fishing your Euro stick, definitely consider, and those smaller flies, those smaller jig hook style flies that are on thinner wire, 5X can be the answer. 6X can be the answer. 7X even can be the answer. If you have a light enough rod, you're not going to break that fly off on every hook set. There's definitely situations where, streamer tippet doesn't always have to be big.
Right.
If you're using larger tippets, 2X, 3X, 1X, 0X, I would definitely say use a loop style knot, a non-slip loop knot. Some people call it a cray loop, lefty's cray, lefty's loop knot. There's, but it's a non-slip loop knot that allows that fly to move on the knot.
Yeah. Gives it animation.
Right? And flies that have animation built into them. The woolly booger is a great example. You've not only got that marabou tail that's doing this through the water, you've also got the hackle wrapped around the body of that's doing this in the water. Maybe you have rubber legs on it like that one that's in the vise there. Those rubber legs are wiggling in the water. Movement is life. Dead stick stuff don't, they work, but a dead stick fly isn't the fly we want for this.
No.
We want a fly that even when we're not doing anything to it with our retrieve, it's still doing something.
It flutters, it flares, it kicks, it breaks, it does what it needs to do to create vibration in the water.
Vibration in the water, swimming motion. The fly does matter. Maybe it's a muddler style fly that's got a big enough head on it that it's pushing some water.
Yeah.
Creating a vortex behind that head that's making the tail wiggle.
Yep.
That does happen. We may not see it physically, but it's happening.
It's the way the fly was designed. It's intentional.
Yes, very intentional. So that to me was a really good question. There's not a hard answer. again, depending on what rod you're using, it could be anywhere from 10 or 12 pound 0x all the way down to 7x. I definitely wouldn't be fishing streamers on 8x.
No.
I wouldn't be fishing them on 7x. 5 is about as far as I go.
Yeah. It was just one of those days that needed it. But
you were going for sink rate.
Yeah, I was looking to really force that streamer down to the bottom as quickly as I possibly could, for sure.
Yeah, and that thinner diameter tippet is less resistance going through the water.
Yes.
The other one that I had was Traveling Fly Guy. His question was a general question about streamers, because we put this out there as a generality. And I think he was probably expecting me to give him a different answer. But if you could only fish one streamer pattern, what would it be? It's easy to say it would be a woolly booger.
Yeah.
But I think in my case, it would probably be some kind of rabbit strip fly. A zonker, a bunny leech. Rabbit carries more bulk with movement than marabou does. Marabou moves a lot, and marabou flares a lot. But that hide strip of the rabbit with that soft hair, not only does it give you this motion, it also gives you this motion.
Yeah.
And so those rabbit strip style flies, the good old-fashioned zonker, with a mylar belly or with a dubbed belly, a flashier belly, and a natural top of that rabbit strip. That to me is, it swings well, it strips well, it moves no matter what I do to it, whether I'm doing anything or not. And it's you're talking about a 2-inch long fly most of the time, 1.5 to 2-inch long fly. It's a size that any fish can eat. If you're out in a farm pond, you're going to catch bluegills on that.
Yeah.
If you're on a lake fishing a brush pile, you're going to catch crappie on it. If you're down on the Shenandoah or the James swinging a riffle, you're going to catch smallmouth on it. I've had days in the summer with real low water where I went to, weren't getting good topwater bite on smallmouth. I fished a zonker and caught a bunch of fish.
It is easy to say woolly bugger, but I think I'm going to have to say the sparkle minnow.
Yeah, another great one.
That one has been a fantastic pattern for me for the last couple years. I know that there is the non-jig version as well. I like the jig version a lot. I will fish both of them. This one, for me, is going to cover pretty much all of the bases that you're talking about here. Not in the jig style. It doesn't really swing well as a jig. But, man, that pattern puts in a ton of work. We don't really see it on the east that much yet, but I've been fishing it over here for a while. I don't think we carry it.
No, it's not you don't see that one offered a lot.
Yeah. It feels like it's a Western pattern, but there's really no reason that it shouldn't be gaining popularity over here yet.
There's so many options now when you're tying flies for yourself on colors of all these materials.
Yeah, for sure.
That you can make about any pattern cover the colors of your local bait fish.
Yeah.
And that's something you should learn as you fish these streams. Start with your basics: white, black, olive, tan.
Yeah.
But as you're fishing those, you're going to find certain colors work better on certain rivers. It's probably because it's matching the color of an available food in that river, that whatever bait fish happens to be prevalent in that river, whether it's a sculpin or a dogger or a dace or a shiner. Sparkle minnows work great in streams that have shiners. And the brighter, the flashier minnows.
And I mean, changing up the colors, you could easily do dace with it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just versatile.
Yeah, and most of these materials nowadays, if you buy a pearl color, you can darken it with Sharpies or with a paint pen.
Yeah.
With a Pantone pen or something like that, or airbrush it. You can two-tone that fly really easily. So, yeah, that's another great, more modern pattern.
Yeah.
That one doesn't date back to,
No.
way back. but that's another great pattern.
Yeah. I do have questions, but my questions feel like they will be geared better towards part 2. I feel like in part 2 we're going to be diving a little deeper into this. It's going to be a little more technical, I think, and we might get more into some of the theory on why we pick certain types of flies. In this one, we were talking about those 1 to 3 inch, sub 4 inch flies, sub 4 inch streamers. And in the next one, we're going to be going over more of your articulated stuff, your larger patterns, specific gear for those as well. And I did get some good questions, but they definitely feel like they're going to be better suited for this next episode. So
No, that's great.
I do want to hold on to those. We are going to get to them. I did get some good ones. So,
And we're going to probably drop this episode early in the week.
Yeah.
This week. And just to give everybody a heads up, over this week and next week we'll be dropping episodes, and then we'll be about 2 weeks before we drop a third. So 5 and 6 are coming up shortly, and then 7's going to be probably early March.
Yeah, so we'll record this next one on the 13th. That one, so this one will be out the 9th or the 10th. The next one will be recorded on the 13th and out the 16th or 17th. Then after that, our next recording date would probably be the 6th of March.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be streamer fishing on the white, and we'll talk about that next episode.
For sure. All right. Well, I think that kind of covers it for this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hopefully keeping you guys at an hour will make it a little bit easier to listen all the way through. We're going to try to work on that.
We're working on that. They might make it a little longer on the next one, but we will see. So I want to say thank you, everybody, for watching. You can find our shop here in Waynesboro at 323 West Main Street. Feel free to come in, talk us up as much as you can, and we're happy to give you as much information as we feel we should or possibly could. And, thank you for watching.
Have a great evening.